All right. So 1910, we have a quorum. We are live. So we're going to get started with the regular Board of Ed meeting. I would just like to let you know that for item 7B, we do have some teachers that are coming over from the middle school that are coming from parent-teacher conferences. So we may need to adjust that a little bit depending on when they get there. So I just wanted to let you know that before we started. And if we can do the pledge of allegiance first. Big flag. Oh, yes, big flag.
Oh, it's bigger.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any public comment?
I just have one relating to the solar thing. Is the same company able to look into larger scale? Like, I get that the school, when this has been the intent for the school for the, I don't even know, the past 100 years to put solar on the roof. Can they do it in conjunction with other buildings in town or other sites in town, or are these guys just looking at the school?
We will look
Yeah,
at
that's, thank you.
I'd like to point out that there is a town energy committee, and they haven't been consulted so far in this project. I think I've met with Mrs. Buell, and I think we both believe that that committee ought to be aware of what's going on.
We're actually gonna, we'll talk to them about that.
I'm sorry?
We're not supposed to come back and forth. So, but we will look into that.
Yeah.
Just not sure if this is the time to speak out, but I wanted to speak about the Woodstock Academy's intention.
Can you just state your name for us? So
Amy Sorrentino.
go ahead.
Okay. I'm here to speak about Woodstock Academy's intentions to leave the CIAAC for NEPSAC. This transition will affect student athletes planning to attend Woodstock Academy in the future. In an attempt to inform myself, I've read through the CIAAC handbook, the NEPSAC handbook. Yes, I'm one of those snow days that we just had when we're stuck at home. So I've done my research. I've had phone conversations with the Associate Executive Director, Greg Simon of CIAAC. I've been in email contact with Bob and Singleton. I just want to tell you what I've learned, and most importantly, how our students will be affected by this. And I don't think that their interests are best being served. And I'm not sure what it is that you could do, but I'm hoping that you could at least help me get the word out to the parents so they're more informed about the situation and could attend the meeting next week on April 2nd. Loss of teams is the #1 reason that impacts my family. I have 2 gymnasts in Brooklyn Middle School. NEPSAC does not have a cheerleading team, a gymnastics team, or unified sports as they currently exist. These students will never get the joy and honor of competing for their school. I grew up in a sports-oriented family. I've been on sports teams in high school. It is part of a well-rounded high school experience. Woodstock does state that no team will be eliminated. They'll just look different, and that is very true. But I just want to explain to you how different. The CIAAC currently, the gymnasts can compete at the local level against schools in Eastern Connecticut. They can move on to the state level. After that, which they've won for the past 8 years, they can move on to the regional or New England. They won that last year, and they went on to nationals, where 2 gymnasts won 1st and 3rd place as the national champions. They got recruited to college at a Division I and Division II school. In NEPSAC, there are only 2 teams in the entire NEPSAC that have a club team in gymnastics. So we have now relegated our national level champions to playing 2 schools with a club team. Where are their college looks now? Unified sports, and if you don't know what unified sports are, it's when people with intellectual disabilities get to play with students, their regular ed peers, together three teams. There's a bowling and a basketball and a soccer team. I've heard that it is so popular that there is a waiting list for regular ed students to be on these teams. That is the kind of inclusion that Woodstock Academy stands behind. NEPSAC does not have these kinds of sports teams. I understand that Woodstock Academy is working with the Special Olympics to find a way to continue this, but the Special Olympics only works with disabled students. It's that unique culture of having this inclusive teams with the regular ed peers and the intellectually disabled working together that makes it so special. So, you know, my question is, why would Woodstock join NEPSAC when it doesn't stand behind the same beliefs? Another way that our students will be impacted if they go to Woodstock Academy is the college credits. NEPSAC states that in their rule book, students concurrently enroll with a college are ineligible to play. Bob Howe on March 12th. He said that students taking AP courses will not be affected by this rule. He never mentioned anything about the ECE courses. So, to this day, there's been no definitive response from him about ECE, leading me to again ask, why is a school devoted to the academic rigor of its students overlooking an important issue like that? I was just informed that yesterday, Mr. Howe emailed Mrs. Singleton or Ms. Singleton to clarify player eligibility standards, but nowhere in that email does it even mention ECE credits. So it's still unclear. NEPSAC is a New England Foul Playoff Championship, which means Woodstock states that travel times will not be greater than 1 to 1.5 hours. But the football schedule that's already been published has a game in Sheffield, Mass, which is 2 hours away, and in Albany, New York, which is 2.25 hours away. And that's math class, and that's by car. We know if you've ever been on a field trip with your child, how much longer a bus takes, especially when it's filled with a team. So these students may miss academic classes due to the games, as well as lose out on precious homework and study time. Extended travel times will also result in decreased attendance by family, fans, and the community, which is also a part of your high school experience. The last impact I want to talk about was that NEPSAC will allow athletic recruitment. And in order for us to be competitive, Woodstock Academy to be competitive, they're going to have to recruit. Athletic recruiting is actually already a reality. The football team has recruited at least 4 athletes for next year, taking the positions of our local athletes. And I don't know if this is true, but someone said that one of them has already quit, one of our local athletes. Again, I don't know, I don't have that fact. But if our local athletes will now be competing against recruited athletes for spots on teams, Woodstock Academy claims that college exposure could be increased, and that's a reason to move towards NEPSAC. It's most likely these recruited athletes from across the country or from other countries that will benefit from that increased exposure. Woodstock also cites the safety of their football players as a reason to move to NEPSAC. But now those same 10th graders who were injured in a game by our local Killingly football team will not only be playing against top recruited football players from across the country, but they're graduated high school. Now they're 18 to 20 years old, typically much larger than your average 10th grader. That just brings more safety concerns moving to NEPSAC. They also cite the transfer rule as a reason for leaving the CIAAC. Transfer rule essentially benches any transfer student for 365 days they cannot play sports. This would affect Woodstock Academy's students holding F1 visas. They need those students, I understand, for private tuition. They are a big part of the budget for Woodstock Academy. But this rule has always existed. And to date, no, it has never been enforced. The possibility of enforcing the rule was brought up in the March meeting with the CIAAC Board of Control. According to Greg Simon at the CIAAC, the reason it was brought up was because, and I'm quoting what he said, this year is They felt it necessary to talk about what to do moving forward. The intent is not to target these students, but to keep the playing field level for all athletes. Because each country has different leagues, it's hard to know whether these students have competed at a level above the high school level or if they've ever received payment to play. Either would put them at an unfair advantage and is obviously against CIAAC rules. Again, only the possibility of enforcing this rule has ever been discussed. Finally, I just want to address the claim that the Woodstock Academy had email approval to start a prep football team, and then the CIAAC informed them that they could no longer have this team. I've emailed with Mr. Simon, and he says, yes, we gave approval for a PG team, and it's what's stated in the actual email. We gave you approval for a post, is known as 13th graders. And the CIAAC investigated and they discovered 10th, 11th, and 12th graders playing on this postgraduate team. They said, that is not what we approved. You have broken the rules. And you cannot continue to have this team in the CIAAC. This really seems to come down to a miscommunication about post-grad and prep team. But just because there's a miscommunication doesn't mean that Woodstock Academy needs to walk away. While Woodstock Academy is a unique school, and it may not always fit perfectly within the CIAAC, I think a move to NETSAC will leave many of our student athletes behind, as it's certainly not in their best interest. The strong community outpouring and speaking out against this move at the BOT, the Board of Trustees meeting last week, shows that local feelings do not support this decision. In fact, no one spoke in the team, the football team, to the detriment of 5 other teams, as well as all student athletes, is not in the best interest of Brooklyn students. I moved to Brooklyn so my students could go to Woodstock Academy. My daughters could go to Woodstock Academy. That has always been our hope for them. We like Woodstock Academy. We just don't think that moving to NETSAC is what we want for our kids. I don't believe that Woodstock Academy is the enemy. I just don't think they realize the impact this decision would have on so many of our students. Thank you for your time.
Any other public comment?
Just, Jason Denolfo, just a
Oh,
question
can
for
you
yours.
just state your name?
I'm sorry, Jason Denolfo, just a question on what you, is that all sports straight across the board? Because I think Woodstock is an ice hockey team, if I'm not mistaken, or wrong, they've
All
got
sports would
wrestling,
be
they've got-
part of NETSAC.
so that
They're all
means,
CIAAC.
like,
If
I'll use wrestling as an example, so Woodstock would wrestle Killenly or Griswold
No.
or anybody else, who would they go against?
New England. I don't know exactly what the team.
So they wouldn't be in, was it class L, class L, or?
No, they're reading the
Okay, if you guys are gonna talk amongst yourself, then you don't.
So-
need to-
I'm so sorry. I wasn't trying to be
I'm just saying-
disrespectful.
No, it's to public comment is to.
I thought I was loud enough, I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
realize I was
it's-
not
it's-
objecting.
The public comment is the question for us, not for the public to be having a discussion amongst themselves. So just, is then that we.
As
can
I
go
was,
all night.
I apologize.
No, that's okay, that's all right. Any other public comment?
I did receive one letter from a family, a student actually, who asked that I read the letter, so I'll go ahead and do that. It was received this afternoon.
Ellie?
Thank you, you all know her. And I'm a junior at Woodstock Academy. I'm sorry that I could not be here in person tonight, but I wanted to talk about Woodstock's potential change into the NETSAC League. As many of you know, if Woodstock goes into it's going to be very similar to what you said. If Woodstock goes into this new league, there will not be a gymnastics team. Living in Brooklyn, you get a choice as to which high school you go to. Growing up at Deary's Gymnastics, you always look up to the older girls who competed for Woodstock. It's most of these girls' dreams to compete for Woodstock Academy. Woodstock is a great school, both academically and their sports teams. But that being said, this switch to NETSAC will greatly change the environment of our school. It's been stated that you cannot be enrolled in ECE classes offered through UConn and participate in a sport. I, along with many other athletes, are currently taking and plan to take ECE classes be able to read academically and still be able to compete in a sport you love. You shouldn't have your choice. You shouldn't have to choose to do a sport taken away from you because you want to challenge yourself academically. I know gymnastics is a team of only 9 girls, but it's 9 girls whose hearts are dedicated to gymnastics. Most of you have probably heard about how many ECC championships or state championships we've won, but it goes further than that. This team is a family, and if the program gets cut, most of us will be separated. We will never get to compete as a team again. USAG is the club gymnastics in which we compete for Jerry's gymnastics. I know that the school has offered to pay for this in order for us to continue our sport, but that is not a solution. If we were to all compete for USA Gymnastics, then everyone would be on different levels and we would no longer be a team. The best would be gone. Academy have been nothing but amazing. I don't regret my decision to go there a bit. However, this change into NETSEC may change future Brooklyn kids' decisions into where they want to go to high school. I know the school is going to make the right decision for the school itself. I just hope they will listen to all of our concerns. Thank you. So I did communicate to her that I would share that.
Amy, I just have a point of order on the agenda before we move on. I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate agenda item 12A, discussion of changes being made at Woodstock Academy, because we don't have anything to discuss because no changes have been decided.
Okay.
I like to second that motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Anybody opposed?
I'm opposed.
That removed. All right. Any other further public comment that you have? Next on the agenda is the regular meeting minutes from February 28th. The only question I had on that is on the second page, and just bear with me if I go to under 5A. Were they requesting to waive building use fees, or it was the custodian fee? Because I thought we weren't charged, because they're nonprofit,
It was
we weren't
custodian
charging. Okay, that's, that's custodian fees. And that's the only thing that I had on the minutes. Did anybody else have any other changes to the minutes that they needed? Then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Kelly? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Correspondence?
I just wanted to acknowledge the Board of Education. April is Board of Education Member Appreciation Month, and so I wanted to recognize each of the board members here this evening. You are vital to the education of the Brooklyn students, and so I just have a small certificate that reads, the Board of Education Member Appreciation Month is presented to each one of you for your dedication and commitment to the Brooklyn Board of Education and your tireless advocacy on behalf of the children of the state of Connecticut. So, you know, publicly being able to say thank you and letting you know that we appreciate you, I just wanted to take a minute to do that. So, thank you. And circle from behind. Thank you so much. Thanks. Don't shoot your hands. Not sharing things. All right. Next.
Next, we'll have a presentation from Chris Sanford, who's the head of school for Woodstock Academy.
How are you?
Welcome, Chris.
So I want to start by thanking everyone for having us here tonight. This is our, we'll come around the other side so the Facebook people can see us. Our yearly, is it Facebook? Whatever. Sorry. Yearly pilgrimage down to Brooklyn, where we present on the first part of the presentation will be given by Dr. Harton. He will just review current data about the academy in general, including specifically Brooklyn students. He will follow up with the budget presentation of currently where we sit with our particular budget. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Hargan, and then I'll come in at the end and fix everything he said and do the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Sanford. Thank you again for having us here, and we're always glad to come and share what's happening at Woodstock Academy and how our students are doing, and our students from Brooklyn in particular. One thing we always like to start with is our mission statement. The mission of the Woodstock Academy is to prepare all students for a lifetime of learning by providing academic rigor, a safe environment, and a diversity of educational experiences, which will foster a sense of respect for self and others and will encourage active investment in family, school, community, and the world. We hope to cover all of that in 10 minutes. Okay, some academic highlights. Our last year's class of 2017, we had a 100% graduation rate. 90% of the students had post-secondary placement in college or the military. We expanded Spain, in addition to our program exchanges with Senegal and Japan, which we continue to do. Our part of the exchange actually is coming up April break. 15 of our students are heading to Spain to share the homestay of the students who came out in September. We've added a dual enrollment course option with Eastern. We're hoping to expand that in the future, but a Math for Liberal Arts class was added. About 40 students earn credit through Eastern for that course. We also have 12 new classes that ran in our schedule are either currently running or ran in first semester. A big thing that's new at the Woodstock Academy this year, of course, is our residential life program with the purchase of the Hyde campus, which has become our South campus. We have about 150 boarding students from 15 countries around the world and 9 states. We've added a significant number of staff, many who are our own teachers and coaches and be part of the residential life staff. We've also kept on some people who used to work at the Hyde School. It's really improved our participation for our students who are boarders in participating in student life through intramurals, clubs, athletics. There's a residential life curriculum. As part of that, there's academic support in the evenings and afternoons for our students, weekend programming, and trips. And really, it's part of our mission of a broader community, so it's really exciting. In addition, the South Campus has given us a lot of programming options that we didn't have before, with some specialized and designated classroom spaces. One of the biggest changes is the music department has fully moved from our North Campus to the South Campus, taking advantage of having a true chorus room for the first time, not rehearsing in the auditorium, having a 1,000-seat auditorium and studios and music classrooms over there as well. We've added art classrooms, and we're building an art gallery on the South Campus. Students, one of the new classes is an art gallery management course, so students are taking a major role in turning that space into a true art gallery. The opening is next week, I believe. Our world language classes, our PE classes, having a second gym has given the option of some classes in aerobics and yoga. There's a wrestling room on South Campus that our yoga classes are in. 3 of our world languages have moved down there, and a couple of math classes are down there as well. We've also located our student services department, special education, to the South Campus as well. And it's created an opportunity for meeting spaces for groups during the day and after school and on weekends. It also has given us the opportunity of expanding our summer programming, athletics camps, academic camps, most geared towards middle school students in the area. And some of them have already been posted, others will be posted very soon. In terms of some data, AP, ECE are advanced placement and early college experience courses. We've continued to expand that program. This year we had the most students ever take those courses, 206 students, and those students took 331 exams. Brooklyn students in particular, they increased their participation quite a bit. Last year, 30 students took 45 exams. And our benchmark is always that a student who takes an AP course should score a 3 out of 5 or higher. And 80% of our students scored a 3 or higher. Of the Brooklyn students, 77%. So one student short of being exactly that's increasing our participation while maintaining a level of excellence. We also had the most AP scholars ever. That's students who've taken at least 3 AP tests and scored a 3 or higher. And of course, our UConn ECE courses. We have 19 courses and 180 students enrolled in that courses. In those courses, that puts us in the top 10 in the state for enrollment in those ECE courses. Our kids get into colleges. These are some of them. I apologize for this slide. Okay, it's messy. All right, as you know, the state went to SATs for high school instead of the SBAC a few years ago. I just broke down some of our numbers for the current, these are the current seniors. And the Woodstock Academy did better overall than the state. Brooklyn students are right about at the same level. And we look at the numbers, they're right there, a little bit higher in reading and writing. And just when we look at the percentage at that level, they're both significantly higher than the state averages. And when we compare them, when we compare both Brooklyn students and Woodstock Academy overall to some of our schools in the region, really they did quite well on the April SATs. Cap Science, the last year of Cap Science was this year. Next year, the NGSS is live.
Brooklyn does not care about the profit scores.
What? Oh, I apologize. Those are the Brooklyn numbers, so I'm sorry. We do a lot of these. I apologize. Those are the Brooklyn numbers, 56 and 89. If they were the Pomfret numbers, they'd be much lower. So, but yeah, and we're looking forward to making the transition to NGSS. This year is a pilot in the spring. Next year, so the current juniors will do a test pilot this year. PSATs, we participate in a test day. We give all of our students on a day in October either the PSAT 8-9 for 9th graders, the PSAT for 10th and 11th graders, and the SAT for grade 12 students. And just a comparison of that. Again, we like this because it allows us to see progression and to compare students year to year. Again, Woodstock Academy students overall do quite well on the PSAT in all 3 years. Brooklyn students, there's a spike there for the current 9th graders. They did quite well. And the 10th and 11th, when I looked at their scores, their individual growth from year to year, the 10th graders, they had 880 on the 8-9, and they went up to 958. So that group made some significant growth as well. The 11th graders, 955, so they also made a good amount of growth. So that's the advantage of testing every year, is we can measure that growth. Just quickly, to look at the school environment, which is part of something that we always think about. We give school climate surveys every year, as I'm sure you do as well. We have very high numbers. People feel safe at the school. They feel welcome. We look to continue to give opportunity for input from parents. When we look at our staff surveys and then our student surveys, the theme of relationships is something we really focused in on, especially with having 2 campuses this year. And so while again, our results are pretty high, it's something we want to make sure we can maintain or improve as we go to this dual campus model. And so our focus for this year as a school in all of the different community. So these are our 2 school-wide goals that we've been working on and will continue to work on throughout the year. I'm going to turn things over to Chris, and then we'll take questions again.
Anyone have any questions on the academic portion?
No. Can you share that with us electronically when you're done?
Can I? Yes, I can. Should I just send it?
Yes,
Okay, I would be happy to do that. Yep.
So I think at this time, we're able to present on the 2018-2019 operating budget, or we call it the fiscal plan of the academy. Just so the Brooklyn residents and the Brooklyn Board of Ed know, Kelly Cotting sits on this particular committee, so I apologize, you've already seen this presentation.
No worries.
So what the process basically is, the subcommittee The finance subcommittee looks at the budget, we analyze it, they ask a bunch of questions. I think we look at it 3 or 4 different times, no different process that pretty much happens at this level. And then it gets kicked to the full board. So this is on the agenda. It is highly unlikely that it will change. This particular number that you'll see here for tuition is what we sent out, I think, almost 2 or 3 months ago to all the sending towns. It won't, I mean, it won't, I'm gonna tell you now, it's not gonna change. So, even though that's-
It can go down, we're okay with
Yeah.
that.
Well, make the motion. So very quickly, each year at the Academy, we establish standards, what our fiscal plan is gonna be and what our focus is. So this year, there's 5 main goals. The first one always remains the same. We want to continue to meet the mission and goals of the Academy. The second one, which is we spent a lot of time in the Finance Committee talking about, is we wanted to make sure from the Academy's perspective, even though we're not really touched by the state budget cuts because of our funding system. Every student, we wanted to make difficult times that we're facing our educational partners. And we'll talk about that as we go through here, some of the adjustments we made. But that was the second guiding principle of this year's fiscal plan. The third one is continue to develop resources and fine tune the South Campus transition. Fourth was to enhance STEAM programming. And some of that is related to the construction of the STEAM Center, which is ongoing, totally funded by donations. And the last one was what we project our enrollment to be. So this year, our enrollment that we currently have now is around 1150. We're projecting to go up about 20 students to 1170. So the operating budget you'll see tonight is solely based on 1,170 students. That's the goal. Every year we present this slide. It doesn't hold true because it always adjusts, but this is the enrollment trend that the Academy is seeing. The blue line at the bottom represents what we see from our sending towns. So the 6 sending towns that we have, every October 1st, we ask for a breakdown of the number of in a spreadsheet, and this is what the numbers come to. And then the orange line represents basically what our ultimate goal is in terms of enrollment, which if you look is roughly, it's not going to be exact because it's about 200 students different. So with South Campus, our goal is to have 200 students on South Campus, living there and boarding there. It could hold 250. Our goal is to maintain 200. The reason why for 200 is because, you'll see in a few slides, the way our fiscal model works to manage the school that we currently have and the program that we have, we need roughly 200 students with an equivalent dollar amount to run the program that you currently see at the Academy. At the same time, maintaining as low as we can tuition rate for our sending towns. Now, this number is what we're seeing in our sending towns. It is wholly possible and probable, if that even makes any sense, that this will not drop as we're expecting. So just to give you an example, we were projecting about a 20 student drop-ish. This year was going to be around 922, but in reality, we saw a big increase. Woodstock alone saw almost 19 new students move into the town of Woodstock that are now coming to the Academy. So they moved in 8th grade, and now they're coming to us in 9th grade. So I don't know if we're projecting a drop, as you can tell, if you look out in 3 years, a significant drop of tuition revenue. Again, I don't know if that's real or not based on what happens in the demographics in all of our towns. Brooklyn is pretty much the only town that is either holding steady or growing. All the other towns are seeing a decrease as they look in grades 3, 4, and 5, and 6. So that's a testament, I think, to what's happening here. So this is the number people want, the proposed tuition numbers. So sending town regular education tuition is going to be $13,892. It's an increase of $217 a student. I'll get into more detail on that in a second. Sending town special education policy that defines what special education tuition is. So a special education tuition student coming to the Academy pays the $13,892 plus the $13,622. So a special education student coming to the Academy doesn't need severe special services such as a 101 aid or speech or something along those lines. That is just these two numbers combined. Private day tuition is $14,500. So a student from Putnam, currently have about 20 of these students at the Academy. A student from Putnam or Thompson or Charlton who's coming to the Academy, who's not from the sending town, does not need to live on campus, pays $14,500. And then a boarding student, so someone living on South Campus, pays $48,500, and that's an increase of 2%. And this bottom one is the most important piece. So if for the same program, forget South Campus for a second, if you eliminate South Campus and what we take just what happens on North. So if we see what happens on North Campus and all the programs, we have the priming and the private day tuition, every student's tuition will go up $1,800 for the same program. Obviously, if that was the case, we'd have to have a discussion if we wanted to make significant cuts to our program. But there's an $1,800 addition if you were to eliminate all the private tuition coming in. This slide, quickly go over, it's really, so the historical trends, those people that have been on the board for a while, you know this is not new facts for you. This blue line represents the total operating budget of the academy. It's not a dollar amount, it's just to show the 100%. This red line represents the percentage that the sending towns are paying, meaning that in 13-14, the sending towns are paying 90% of what it costs to run the academy. This upcoming year, the budget that we're being presented tonight and going to the Board of Trustees at the next meeting is 88%. This difference is the $1,800. So in reality, you're really only paying 88% of the total program that the academy currently has. We have the luxury of having the ability to bring in private tuition dollars as an independent school. And this is not a knock on any other school in general, just their funding structure doesn't allow, under the state of Connecticut rules, does not allow this type of mechanism. So that's how we benefit by being an independent school in the state. The three of us that are like this in Connecticut, so you know, is Woodstock Academy, Norwich Free Academy, and which you're familiar with, and the Gilbert School, which is in Winstead. Okay, this slide's important, has a lot on it. I'm going to spend most of my time on it. And I want to apologize in advance because it's confusing. So let's start with the blue and the red. And this is an important, so you realize the significance of what this is trying to. Starting in this, you can see all the way to the left, is $12,736,000. I'm going to just get off the last three numbers for the intent of this presentation. The 18-19 budget, which is next year, is a total of $13,087,000. Meaning that red line is what the sending towns, all the sending towns have paid to tuition to the academy in that number of years. Meaning that in 9 years, we went from 12,736 to 13,087. So in 9 years, our sending town tuition, the total dollar amount has increased $350,000 in 9 years. Now, that is different per town, obviously, because they have different numbers of kids going, right? So if you have 20 new kids 1 year and then 50 new kids less, I mean, it's just based on the number of students that you're sending. But the key part is that what the academy's been able to do is, and it impacts towns differently because of the number of kids you're sending, but the total dollar amount we collect from sending towns has not adjusted. What has adjusted, and this is the key part, what allows us to be the school that we are, is the blue line. The blue line represents the private tuition dollars that we're getting from around the world or that we're getting from local students like from Putnam or Thompson. So this year alone, the total budget of the academy is I'm going to round up for this, is $17.5 million. Sending towns are paying $13 million. Next year, based on the budget and our projections and what we want for enrollment, now we have South Campus, we can actually increase to 200 students. The sending towns are paying $13 million, and the private tuition is bringing in $21.5 million. The difference here is private tuition dollars. And this is the funny way to put it. As Holly always says, the difference here is the stuff that people like. This is algebra 1, algebra 2, biology that every school has. The things that separate the academy and make us who we are, the uniqueness or the ability that we have, is the gap, this gap. That's the important piece. The funny, I shouldn't say the funny part, the other piece of this story would be if we had the exact same program, including South Campus and everything we currently have, you'd almost have to add over $9,000 on everyone's tuition bill to have the exact same program that we have now that includes everything. But if you cut out South Campus and only use North, it's an $1,800 difference. If you add in South and everything that's there, it's almost a $9,000 difference per student. This is a lot of stuff, and I apologize. I try to pack it all in. Mr. Otto, you're the math guy. Does that make sense? How do you do?
Yeah.
All right. You've been here long enough. You've heard this presentation many times.
I'm waiting for you to justify the move to NEPSAC.
That's not- I don't need to justify it.
Oh, I know you can say you're on about it.
So this slide's an important slide too. It doesn't bode well really a lot for Brooklyn. But what this slide is supposed to say or show is that the money that we get in, we really reinvest in our communities. So 67% of the money that we collect in the operating budget goes back to the communities, and you can tell the dollar amount is listed here. This includes salaries or things that we've purchased in that community. So $700,000 is actually returned to Brooklyn in salaries or things that we purchased. Now, if you add in the region and you add in places like Putnam and other communities around in the Northeast, it's well over almost 90% of the money that we bring in, we spend in our area. With well over 200 employees, we're in the top. Someone told me the other day, I think we're the top 8th or 9th employer. In terms of the numbers of that we have and the businesses that are around, the size of our school and what we provide. That came from the Chamber of Commerce. This slide is the summary, the operational summaries. The key part of this is, if you remember our budget, if I went to this slide, the total budget increase next year is, I think, $27,000. It's going from $13,060,000 to $13,087,000. So remember I told you that second bullet was talking about relying heavily on protecting the sending towns. So it's only going up, our budget this year for sending towns is going up $27,000. That's it. And what you see on this though is how we got there and some of the adjustments we had to make. Salaries and benefits, if you look at your superintendent's budget, is no different. That is the bulk of any increase of any budget. So even though our tuition increase for the sending towns is going up $27,000, our increase for salary and benefits in terms of the amount of money we have to pay. And how we're able to do that is by our annual fund and also raising money on the outside of the school, the normal school procedures, such as paying tuition, and tuition revenue coming in from non-sending town students. So we have 3 different revenue sources which allow us to compensate for that $400,000 and not have a massive hit on the sending towns. Instructional supplies are going down. We went to iPads. We very rarely buy textbooks now. As an example, all Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry classes are actually total online books. The teachers have gotten together over the summer, and they've created, using apps and all kinds of stuff. There's no textbooks, per se, that we traditionally think of. So the instructional, we have a massive transportation has decreased hugely. M&J, I'm not talking about busing, so I'm not going to bring it up here. I just want to tell how it impacts us in a positive way, not how you guys have dealt with it. M&J is someone we used to use, and they were in Pomfret. Woodstock, as you may or may not know, does no longer manage their own transportation. They put it out to bid and now have DATCO. With DATCO being in the town, and their bus depot is at the town garage, we're able to actually save a lot of money using DATCO, and it's a lot cheaper using DATCO than M&J for us. So we see a decrease in transportation. That includes things, like the late bus that we provide to the Brooklyn students, all the transportation for sports, athletics, activities, all that stuff. We're seeing an increase in facilities. It's tough to keep up with a building that's the size and the age that it is. So there's a $20,000 increase, and there's no increase in debt service. And this debt service is something that the Board of Ed doesn't really have. The Academy does not have a municipality, so we have to manage our own debt service. So the private tuition piece, everyone has a copy of this slide. I don't need to read it. Just talks about the advantage and what private tuition allows us to do. I mean, I don't think there's any debate about that. Everyone understands that piece. And that's the end of my presentation. So I will take questions from the board if anyone has any related to the. Great.
I'd just like to say thank you.
No problem. Just finally, at any time, I know Patty's given a tour. I know people that are on our board of trustees have gotten a tour. We will give a tour of South Campus to anyone. If you just shoot me an email or Mike, we'll give you a tour to see what we've done with the facilities and and the changes that are happening there. And then in addition to that, we would allow us to show you how we've opened up space at North Campus by moving all those things down to South. It'll be a significant increase in the things that we can do at North. So thank you very much.
We have 5 teachers, or maybe 6 teachers here right now. These are the people that send you these wonderful
Awesome.
Brooklyn
Great.
kids, so.
There's 2 of them we're gonna send back. We'll talk about that later. You're great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you about it. You know my number.
Have a hard time because
I don't think it is.
I would entertain a motion, in reference to our board of teachers that have to get up really in the morning, to move, item 7B up, to this point in time, so that we can allow teachers to get some rest.
Second.
All in favor? Are going to Brooklyn School's Next Generation Accountability Report. Why is it you were-
Just give me a second.
Okay, sorry, just making sure that it was.
Yep, you're right. So I alluded to the fact that we have several teachers here right now, and administrators. So the next portion of the Board of Education meeting is about the Next Generation Accountability Report, but tied into that, there are teachers here that are going to report about, in addition to some of these scores, what the work is they've been working on for curriculum work and how that's tying in. So I want to just thank you for all being here and you know, taking your time to share this to the board. It's very important, I believe, that the board hear from you directly about the great things. So who's going to start?
So.
Go for it,
You're
You're the start.
Jim, do you want me to go
Yeah,
first?
you go first, and we'll get this thing plugged in.
Okay. Jim and I are gonna talk about science. Basically, in 5th grade and 8th grade, we still have, testing and that's, in state testing. I believe in the future there'll be more grades, but I want to give you a little timeline about what we were faced with. Last June, when we went for summer break, we were talking about coming back in August and doing transition to the next generation science standards. We had to incorporate the current curriculum because we were going to have the CMTs. We come back in August and Jim says to me, oh, by the way, the state changed their mind right into next generation standards. So, and basically that's what we had to do. We were not going to follow the old curriculum. We had to go into the new curriculum with only the standards, no curriculum at all. We were planning to implement this in 2018, 2019 for the testing that would be going on. There was a pilot last year that the 5th grade in this district took. We were going to do other pilots, but now they're actually doing these standards. So the only way that was able to work in some measure is that we worked with Jane Cook, who's been working with us on curriculum, and she kept us focused. And the important thing about this PD that she did with us is that this allowed us to not only do the curriculum, also bring at the same time. And for all the teachers are in here, you know that's difficult to do both. We're not curriculum coordinators, we're teachers. So what, not only did she do that, she also helped us keep our curriculum designed similar to the other curricula that we're doing. Originally, we were looking at a 2 to 3 year transition, and realistically, that's what it's going to be. We have no idea what the scores are going to look like on the test, but when you're transitioning 2 or 3 years, you have to keep that in mind. And so I'm hoping the Board of Education will keep those scores in mind, knowing that this year we were working on curriculum, we didn't have one. one of the thing is that since we're still in transition, it's unrealistic without the PD or with Jane, to realize that for us to do this curriculum work. Without that professional, we can do it. She's helped us write the curriculum, move to the standards, and approach a whole different way of teaching science. And Jim is going to talk about that part and probably add something to that.
Okay. Transition to the NGSS standards, okay, is going to take a number of years because it's a different way of looking at how to teach the various standards. Okay, and what I wanted to do is just give you an example. This is one of the practice questions. In fact, I just did this with my students this week. Okay, I wanted you to see how different it is. It's not like, what is the function of the cell membrane? Okay, you're not going to get a question like that. Okay, because the sheet that I gave you explains that it's three-dimensional thinking. You're going to have your specific objective, your disciplinary core idea. In this particular case, as you can see, it's about transference. Then you also have your scientific and engineering practices, and there are two that this one kind of focuses on, because the idea in the test is to bundle a whole bunch of these ideas together so that you're not testing them separately. So you're analyzing, interpreting data, and engaging in argument. And that doesn't mean we scream and yell at each other, though that's what the guys like to do, but that's different. Okay, but it's really trying to decipher what the information is telling you and defend with evidence. And then finally, your cross-cutting concepts are things that take place no matter what science concept that you're investigating. So in this particular case, you're going to see cause and effect, and definitely how energy flows, and energy transformations. So when we start off over on the left side, and this is kind of the standard with your SBAT tests, or you could look at the story or whatever they have. Now they've got a really nice Thomas the Train animation thing here for us. Okay, so the question is, sparks fly off the wheels when the brakes are applied. So let's watch that because that's exciting. Kids really like this because it's like Disney quality animation. Okay, but it does tell you a lot of information because it's a real life phenomenon. And that's what they're looking at. They take something from a real life and then apply all the scientific concepts to it. Okay, then the student has the ability to, I can't do it well here, but okay, scroll down and see the information in the table before the brakes are applied, after the brakes are applied. And the question is, way down at the bottom, you analyze what happens to the train when the brakes are applied. Okay, so when we go to the questions, it says, construct an argument about what happens when the train's brakes are applied. So what we have is a series of little pull downs here. So applying the brakes causes the wheels, brakes, rails to transfer kinetic energy. Anybody want to yell out an answer? This is the entertainment portion of the program, guys. Oh, good call. Okay. Okay, transfer kinetic energy to the, well, wheels, brakes, or rails. Oh, rails, good call again. Okay, this causes the wheels to have less, it's less, more, or the same?
Less.
Oh, good call again. Okay, now, the good thing about the sample questions is they actually can check and see what they've done. Okay. They wanted that on the test, and I said, I don't think that was going to fly. Okay, I'm just saying. And then it says, what happens? So they've made a claim they have to defend it, okay? And this is their argument. So we're going through when the train applies its brakes, what happens to the energy of the surroundings? Anyone want to?
Gain energy.
Gain energy, good call again. Boy, we're doing great. Okay, and then which three statements support your choice in part B? Now they can go back and look at the table. They can replay Thomas the Train here. Okay, so
Sound is produced.
Sound is produced.
Light is produced.
Light is produced. Heat is produced. Yeah, because you saw all those, well, I think they hear the train, but this one doesn't have sound. Okay, some of them do. Okay, and then 3 pieces of evidence that would support the claim that the kinetic energy of the wheels changed form, because energy gotta go someplace. Exposure. The energy is heat. Yeah, they give off light. Okay, so let's see. Let's see what we're scoring. Where is it? It's up at the top there. Oh, let's see how well we did. Okay, and we can score the item. Oh, look at all the ones that we got right. Yay. And we can score you. Actually, there's a whole bunch of them here, but I can't get it to scroll down. Okay, so in this one, we got 9 out of 9. Yes. Okay, so this is the type of question now that's going to be on the NGSS assessments.
Is this 5th grade?
No, this is 8th grade. This one's 8th grade. Okay, 5th grade is hard.
5th grade
Okay.
is very similar.
Yeah, the questions are similar. Now, not every question on the test is going to be like this. I'm sure there's going to be some. I have no idea. I've never seen it. Okay, so but there are going to be a series of these scenarios, and what the test will be is 2 45-minute sessions. That's what we're looking at. So we'll be doing that in April for the first time. So the kids did this one 2 days ago. We went over it, and then they took the other 4 questions that are in the practice assessment today. Okay, and it was eye-opening for some of them. Okay, because it's different. It's very, very different. And one of the things that we have to do over the next few years is to develop our assessments to match these scenarios. And that is very different from what we have done before in many cases, because we haven't always tied together all 3 concepts, and we need to. So, questions?
This is done on the computer.
Oh, yeah.
Like they take the test on the computer
Yeah.
as an actual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everything's on computer.
Well, they must like that.
Well, no, it's because they have to work. If they were playing, on Fortnite or something, that would be different. Yeah, but, All right, any other questions? Okay. Okay, oh, you're quite welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
So,
I haven't seen you in a long time. All right.
Can you introduce yourselves before you go? Because not everybody knows you, both of you. And then before the
I've been here for 30 years.
I have.
Okay.
You have to understand that we've got some people on this side that only have elementary school
Yes.
kids, so we haven't gotten that far
I
yet, so.
apologize.
You better hurry up.
Jim, yeah.
I know, right?
My daughters are older. Okay, Jim Baylor. Okay,
8th grade
8th grade science.
Diane Wimmer, 5th grade.
Thank you.
Okay, going.
We don't have any fun, test questions like
I'm going
Jim,
home.
Diane here, but we're gonna talk a little bit about social studies. Natalie Keith, I teach 7th grade geography. Denise Thompson, I teach 6th grade geography. So in February 2015, the state released some new state standards on social studies, and it changed everything from the elementary school up. We had an ancient civilization mainly on China, the Mayan civilizations, Incan civilizations, ancient Japan, ancient Greece, ancient Egypt. And so there was not, we had to completely shift to do a 2-year geography program. So in the first 2016-2017 academic year, we switched to focus on the 5 themes of geography and the 4 new themes that are going throughout the standards. It's geography, history, civics, and economics are now covered within the geography curriculum in both 6th and 7th grade. Denise covers the Western Hemisphere, including the US. I cover Europe, Asia, and Africa. And mainly what we've noticed is that with this curriculum, it's heavily focused and ties into the National Geographic standards. It ties into the Common Core, and it's also including a lot of the new inquiry models that are coming out and really have like I said, we've had to start from scratch, and we have not had any examples from the state. So we've been really heavily utilizing Jane Cook, who is our education specialist. She comes in once a month, and I think Denise is going to talk a little bit about her.
So honestly, thank God for Jane Cook. I can't say enough about the way she's been able to help us. I came into 6th grade geography thinking I was teaching the ancients, And then I found out it was gonna be geography. It was a whole different, and nothing was set up. So, as a team with, also the eighth grade and fifth grade teachers, we've been working together as a team with Jane, helping to facilitate conversations about what we need to do and how we tie all of this information together. The new standards, the new social studies standards actually puts the United States into the fourth grade in the elementary school. And after this year, we won't be covering the United States, Canada, Latin America, and then Western Europe. And there is still, we can bring the ancients in, as we're working on curriculum right now, and we're into I'm working on the South American curriculum right now with Jane. We're looking at those Incas, Aztecs. We don't want to lose that ancients part because it's so critical for kids to have that background. The state, if you look at the state standards, there really isn't a place for the ancients anymore throughout the whole K through 12. So we're really trying to focus in on that. The other piece of that, so we've done a lot of modifications. We've taken what the state has given us. We've been to meetings at EastCon, where the Social Studies Council, where we've talked about how we can modify them. You know, it's not really etched in stone as much. So we can modify different things. I spent the first 3 months in sixth grade just doing what is geography, physical geography, human geography, talking about maps, doing all that, and then bringing those 5 themes of geography. No.
Fun for
So there are location, place, region, human environment, interaction, and movement. And in all of those pieces, like Natalie said, we can integrate all those. Having Jane Cook has been, like I said, instrumental. She's been helping us work with that vertical alignment. So as we work individually on our curriculums, she's helping us to pull all of those pieces together. You know, curriculum work is most effective when the teachers write the curriculum. When it's handed to you, when you have a curriculum specialist who does it for you and says, here, this is, you know, when we're working on it, we can actually create those questions, do those inquiry kind of things. We can try them out, go back and share what works, what doesn't, and we're not stuck in, you know, there's no conversation. We really can't deviate from it. So that's been huge. The other impact has been on our students, because we've been able to have conversations with each other, and we can talk about, you know, I can talk about what they're going to do next year, how what I'm doing this year will connect with Natalie. We can talk about what we've been doing in fifth grade with the colonists and bring that into our conversations. That conversation is helping students. We can look at our inquiry question, what works, what doesn't, go back to the team and talk about it. Having Jane there with us allows us to have an outside perspective. She also has worked in Norwich, she's worked in a lot of other districts, and she sees what's happening, so she's able to share some of that with us. Yeah. And she also is an outside observer. She can come into our classrooms, and there's no, you know, there's not that, you know, sorry, but there's no threat when he comes in. You know, we have, you know, we can where we can really talk about, well, how do I do this different? How do I do this better? Not that Al ever makes us feel that way, but you know, it just gives us a different perspective and outside perspective. The other piece of this, social studies, is so valuable and helps us integrate our ELA standards, because you know they're so busy with teaching those strategies. We can take those strategies and put them into our curriculum, and put them into our writing and the reading and all of that. That you know we have a great time together.
And moving forward, the plan is, as we're kind of vertically aligning our curriculums right now and kind of seeing, okay, what themes can we keep up and kind of continue between 6th and 7th grade, what projects might we line up? We're looking at that as well. But it opens up doors for us to align curriculum horizontally, for us to work with the reading and writing teachers within our own grade levels and see, okay, you know, what book are you reading? Can we pick a book that maybe connects to the release? It really does open doors for the students, allows them to make those connections more easily and clearly.
Thank you.
One tiny question.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned that one bit of the curriculum is going to move down to 4th grade.
Yeah.
United States Geography, is that what it was?
Yes. We've
So
been working the curriculum for the past 2 years.
How do you deal with, like, so say the current 4th graders aren't getting it and they're going to do it? Oh, they are.
Yeah, and I've had conversations with the 4th grade team, and
I had started when I was in fourth grade, teaching in fourth grade too, so we had started already bringing it down there, so. And
So it was something that you knew was coming,
Yeah, we-
so kids aren't lost,
Right,
like.
no, we've been
no.
talking to them about that. So, yeah.
I'm just
Kind of
curious
slow
about changes
transition.
like that.
Excuse me. Is there sufficient latitude in these new curricula to allow you to challenge above average students?
Definitely.
Yeah, we've been doing.
Yeah. With geography in seventh grade, since the basics of it, and so we do go a little bit further into delving into the tougher topics of current events in the Middle East or Africa and what's going on in East Asia, or and so bringing in these kind of compelling and essential questions, higher lexile readings for students, and even right now I have an enrichment debate class during one of the flex periods to allow for that challenge for the students that do need it.
If I could just, it's pretty fascinating. So it doesn't matter where you stand on gun control. It was 6th and 7th graders who by far came down to our cafeteria because they wanted to weigh in on it. And they weighed in on it because they made it part of this living social studies curriculum. And kids had different points of view. And we're not concerned so much with the point of view, is that they substantiated with some sort of facts behind where the position or opinion is. So it's really interesting to see is impacting what the kids are saying and doing.
And what I think with this curriculum, I have a poster that I made in my room and I use it every year. The students seem to kind of connect to it, is that, you know, just in 5 years, 5 to 6 years for most seventh graders, they will be voting. And so for them, it's a huge piece of social studies, because for so long, why do we need history? We don't need social studies. We don't need to know these places. No, you do, because it's really helping them to make them better, more well-rounded citizens and understand the inner workings of our government and what's going on even in their small community of Brooklyn. So it is really helpful, I think, with these new standards.
And with some of the new materials out there, like that, we're looking at piloting a tech book, and that would, if we were to do something with a tech book, that would change. Like it would be updated all the time, so we wouldn't have to keep buying new books. Even the books we have now, when we talked about, that's changes. So many things, things are changing all the time. So those are the kinds of things that we are exploring. Again,
we ordered new
support from
textbooks
Jane.
my first year here, and the next year when we started, those maps were out of date. There were already countries that were changing. And so this is, you know, incorporating technology is another piece that Jane really helps us with, and that is really helpful for us as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alice usually tries to keep me quiet. I'm going to talk a little bit about math. Kathy Green was supposed to be here, but she's also student council advisor. We had conferences, so she has to make sure the kids get home safely. So she asked me to do this for her. I'm going to talk to you a bit about the math, and you're going to hear the same theme about how instrumental Jane Cook was in helping us develop the curriculum. But we have been working on the curriculum, so we are tweaking it. I got implemented to make it, and also to have the children understand the changes that are coming in. I spend most of my conferences talking to parents about, no, it's not new math. What we're trying to do is make them think. So if you think about how we were taught to do math, it was both basically rote, you know, 1 and 1 and 2. Odds is not to reason why, just divide and multiply, invert and multiply. We're telling them why now. And so that's hard because they have to persevere in it. And so that has been the big change that parents are fighting with, because it's not the same way. It's making them think, it's telling them why, and finding out that's sometimes more than one way to find an answer. And in doing that, we have someone else that's been helping, that has an extensive background. She was at the Woodstock Academy. I believe she was the chair there. I think you know Pat. She worked in West Hartford as a math consultant. She teaches at Nicholas College. She's also an East Current consultant. Pat is helping us take that curriculum and align it with things like assured problems. These are the things that you see on SBAC. No, we're not trying to teach the test, but we certainly want the students to understand how to approach a problem. And she's been getting us the resources and giving us the time to really think about problems. She even gives us a problem of the day type thing. And it makes us, it's amazing to work with colleagues and see how different thinking goes on and the discussions that go on with math. And that's the other thing that Pat has emphasized with us, that the kids have to talk about this more. I also have to put a plug in for our, no offense, one of the things that Pat has introduced us to is Principles in Action. It's a book that's helping us focus discussion on effective teaching and learning. So our teaching, students learning, and even our learning. And we are also examining the structures we do have in place to provide some of those essential elements. Some of the things that we've been working with are IXL. IXL is an online program that all of our students have access to. It's a skill-based program that they can practice with. They can, it's a program that once they start learning a skill, they can go on, they can improve. We are in the end of a reflex grant that we had in the middle school. That is for students, and especially in the middle school, it's for students that are struggling to learn the basic math to do math. But our children who have problems learning. So this reflex math the kids feel like they're playing games. I know they now have a grant down at the elementary school too. It's a wonderful resource. I have data that I'm going to give to Al about how they've improved by just using this a few times a week. The other thing that the 6th grade has, and apparently it will be going to next year's 5th grade, is a pilot study. It's a grant from UConn, and it's called Math Brainius. I wish Kathy was here to talk more about it, but it is a program that, again, it's an online program that they're going to work with math. So with Jane helping us get that curriculum aligned and also getting a common vocabulary, a vertical alignment, with Pat helping us bring that together, we really are now going and how the students are working with it. Any questions?
Thank you.
So I don't take any insults, so we hire the right people and get doing the stuff. So it's been really, like I said before, it's been really helpful to have a superintendent allow us to have a Pat Sussel, because there were things that she listened to about what was really critical when we're doing these cuts. And allowing staff to work together, because it is making a big difference. And hiring the right person and people to be in place to help us move forward has been really, really helpful. So.
Thank you.
The one piece that's not here, we didn't have related arts people. They're working with Jane also to that side. So it's not that the PE, art, and computer teachers haven't done some stuff, but it's been minor support compared to the heavy. We've been trying to put the heavy lifting into the academic subjects at this point.
Even language and reading and.
We're still working at that. We have committees that work at that. I would say we're strongest with language. I mean, we're meeting those expectations, and we feel we're going to keep growing. Social studies is going to help us to get better at language, because it's that applied piece that they're getting in language arts, and they're using that also in social studies. So it's heavy reading, heavy writing, heavy thinking, and talking about stuff. So.
Great stuff.
Yes, please.
Well?
Yes, please.
One of the things that the elementary school has focused on, and we've also, over the last few years, but over the last number of years, that we've also worked with Jane Cook a lot on building the math and ELA curriculum. This year, our Unified Arts staff is working. They're working on developing some of our curricula haven't been updated since like 2004, or we don't even have, some of the Unified Arts curriculum don't have pre-kindergarten or kindergarten standards in them. So they have been working every day while these guys are working on ELA standards at the moment, the Unified Arts have been working on their own and with colleagues in other districts to build those curricula. But, so we've been working, we had our math and our ELA curriculum written, and once, as everyone knows who's been a teacher, once you write it, then you start to implement it, and then you realize you need to revise it, and then something didn't work. What we have been focusing on for reading and math is just implementing the curriculum that we have and seeing and going through that review and revise process. We felt that the team of teachers, when we met last year, we wanted to look at what our focus would be. They felt strongly that reading and math, that we had a curriculum, we had to implement it, we had materials that we're moving towards, but that we had many teachers who were teaching different things, particularly in writing. So some grade levels had writing prompts, some had rubrics for those writing prompts, some didn't have any writing prompts, but everybody had something like a series they were teaching for math or a core reading component. So when we said, okay, well, what do we need to focus on? We agreed that consultants from RESCON, who Linda Kaufman and Tiffany Smith, who have been working with the staff on integrating Writers Workshop. We're also now going forward with them for next year to begin the Readers Workshop model. So I have Amanda and Nicole here. They're on our third grade team to give you sort of what they've done as a team. One of the things I can say absolutely about BES and the work that's been done is, and Amanda, you can talk about this because you've been there longer than I have, but one of the things we noticed right away was there was a lot of independent instruction going on. So you'd go into one classroom and one teacher would be deciding that they were going to use this series and they were, you know, teaching a certain way. And then you went into another classroom of the same grade and they were teaching very different. So you could have got twins and she could have kids in different classrooms and you're like, one's using Storytown and the other one's using Miss Lilypad, and there was just a lot of different stuff happening. All good stuff. Kids were learning, our scores, you know, are improving, but it was sort of that collaboration where you could go, now I walk into a room and, oh, they're doing that. And you go to the next room and it's like, oh, I just was, huh. You know, like you just, there is that connection going on. So I will let them talk about the Lucy Calkins piece and then I can share a little bit about the math piece too.
Before we start, I just want to know, you said the thing about how Unified Arts wasn't updated since 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I was in elementary school in 2004.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. You know, she doesn't let us forget she's our baby now.
It usually doesn't.
Jonathan March is still upset that he's no longer leading his the building, so.
So I'm just gonna pass out a few things for you guys so that you can kind of have an understanding of what I'm talking about, because some of this may be foreign to you, and there's lots of different things to look at. This should be with the reading, not the writing, but it's kind of the same thing. All right, so like Shelley had mentioned, I've been here for 6 years now, and out of those 6 years, 4 years. So a lot of work has gone in on that, and I have worked with Jane Cook as well, and she has taught me. Yes, she was. She's taught me a tremendous amount. Yeah, being able to work with her in a small group regarding language arts, and it really helped me grow as an instructor with different types of effective instruction that she would give me, especially in writing. So going back a couple of years ago, going into second grade, which was my third move, since I had started, and I was panicked with writing and everything, and Brianna Lazor, who's no longer with us in Brooklyn, she introduced me to a resource that her cousin used in New Jersey, which is the workshop model. And so what we're going into is the workshop model, but we are using Lucy Calkins, and language arts. And she has tons and tons and tons of information out there for teachers. So at that point, everything was written, but nothing was being implemented. And so some of the work that was being done is kind of like, everybody use it, please. So we finally got to the point through our professional development committee that, yes, we need to go into writing and implement this writer's workshop. And that's where we actually got to talking with EastCon through team mentoring, actually. It was me and Mrs. Sarah Guimont who talked about getting into the workshop model, and they said that they could help us out with that. Next thing you know, Shelley's talking with them, and we're on our way to implementing this new model. So again, at that point, there was no alignment whatsoever between one room and somebody might be doing empowering writers, and another room that might be 6 traits, and another room it could just be a combination of everything. What this has done is now there's an alignment through grade level. So each grade level builds upon the skills from the previous year. So I know
Kim is back here too,
Kim's
she
here.
can represent grade one.
She has implemented narrative right into her grade level. So now we know that first grade is getting the narrative workshop model. So next year, second grade, they're going to be able to build upon what they learned in first grade, and then by the time they come to us in third grade, they even have more skills that they can build upon, which is really exciting to see as it starts to trickle down. In these books, if you open them up real quick, just any page, you'll see that it's extremely wordy. There are lots of examples. That doesn't include the online component either. What EastCon, so Tiffany and Linda. Have done is they've helped us unwrap all of this and unpack it and really focus in on the components that we should be teaching and some of the things that we can kind of let go and not have to focus on so much. So things like the explicit teaching of, you'll see there's teaching points, so that's the objective that we want to be teaching. They give at the end of, so the workshop model is actually a certain way that you're teaching. So you start with a mini lesson going over the objective and what you're teaching. You go into explicit instruction. The kids then have time to do their independent work through coaching. And then there's actually share time, which is kind of like a peer feedback, peer, I don't know, peer review. So within that, like we are able to take, okay, for share, this is what we're going to do today, or we're looking at this for today, and that's really not going to work for us at this point, so we don't need to do that today. They've really helped us go through that and understand it a little bit more. And Nicole will talk a little bit more about some of the checklists and everything that you see here. It also gives a really good opportunity for differentiation with our students. It helps the higher students work hard, like into tougher concepts, and then it also gives us the opportunity to work with our lower students, being able to pull them into a small group for conferencing based on whether or not we feel that they are struggling with a skill or a strategy that we are teaching them that day. And what we're looking into explicit instruction, because we are now the authors for the students, and so we are modeling to them each skill and strategy, and we want to see them implement that into their own writing. And when we're not seeing that, that's a red flag for us to think, okay, we need to take that kid or those children who are having trouble implementing this and really focus in on that skill for them. And also, if you look at where the heart is, okay, what I love about the heart is it really shows you that the kids are really able to pick their own topics that they want to write about. So it's something of interest to them. So right now, what third grade has been able to do is we have unpacked the unit. So kids are able to write down, okay, what is it that you know a lot about? What are you an expert in? Yes, as they put it. Okay, so I have in my classroom anything from ranging from sports to drones to chickens to to any type of animal. So it's fascinating to see what interests the kids have and how they can really take that interest and run with it. I've had kids, so in that same packet, there is a child's work. This one right here with the web on the front. This child has very difficulty getting into his work and focusing and maintaining that work throughout the whole time, especially during independent time for writer's workshop, where they have a good 30 to 45 minutes. I see his child, and I know you can kind of look the teacher's eye to know what he's saying in some parts, but he decided he was going to write about basketball. He's playing basketball, and this kid, when he started writing, I thought the paper was going to start smoking because he was just writing furiously. And then to be able to take that information, break it down into different topics, and then write about different topics, he did such a great job, and he's excited to go to writing each day. And I know Kim said that about her first graders as well, in that they really love to do their writing at this time. So, and then I also had my chickens. But that's a great one as well, because it really shows what type of things that we are teaching within the classroom. So text structure, trying to get type of text, trying to get these kids to think as authors and to include those type of things like pros and cons or cause and effect, problem solution into their own writing to become expert authors. I'm going to hand it over to Nicole to talk a little bit about the different checklists that they can use.
Sure. So I'm just going to intro in saying that I have a very different experience than Amanda, as in I'm a first-year teacher. So at the beginning of the year, we were using these Ashley units, which were the workshop model. But what I found is it was lacking a lot of resources. It had limited resources. It gave you your lesson and your strategy that you were supposed to teach for the day, and then it was kind of like, all right, now go write, which really didn't give me time to work with those struggling those needed. Most of the time I was working with this one student who was severely struggling, and the rest of my class was missing out. So through this program, I've sort of gained confidence in my instruction, especially with assisting with struggling writers, because it has resources for you to say, well, if my student is struggling with this concept, what can I do to prompt them and support their thinking without writing it for them? Because the big thing with these programs is also having them do the work. You step away and you act more as a coach than a teacher. So now I'm able to meet with each of my students either daily or every other day and assess on a daily basis. Like Amanda said, you can see, all right, these students are struggling with this, and reiterate how to go about that style of writing. I also love the collaboration with my team. I feel like our team, and I see it throughout the school, have really been collaborating as far as these writing units go. And Amanda mentioned the checklists, and in your packet, you should have a paper that says learning progressions. So and I mentioned something about how I wasn't confident in helping my struggling readers. I also wasn't confident in knowing what was expected of a third grader. I have experience in education. I worked in kindergarten and first grade for 3 years before becoming a teacher and teaching in third grade, but that was my experience. It was more in early childhood. So this program also tells you exactly what should be expected from your students. And you can see it sort of written in their language. So they can self-assess. And right now we're working on information writing. So when you're writing information, an information book, you include a lot of facts. So it rates it to, I just wrote facts, so I'm progressing a little bit, all the way up to the expert level, where I use examples to explain my facts, comparisons, specific details, important words, actions, and definitions. So it helps me assess my students and where their strengths and weaknesses are, and reflect. And that's actually another big part of this program, which I think is really important. I think a lot of students don't often have time to reflect personally on how they are doing. They're often told, all right, you got an 80 on this test, or you got a P on the report card. But they don't have time to think, all right, how am I doing personally? Where do I want to improve? Where do I need to improve? So on this other checklist, I don't think you have the complete checklist, but it's a sample of it. It's written in their language, and it has pictures to sort of help them find what they're looking for in their writing. So as they're going through writing their rough drafts, they're thinking about if they wrote a baby, and there's a not yet check mark, a starting to, or a yes. So if they check off yes, they know that they're all set with that part of their piece and they can work on something else. If it's starting to, they know that they could strengthen it a little bit. And if it's not yet, that's maybe something that they should ask Ms. Duquette for help with. It really gets them thinking about where they can strengthen their writing. And it also allows them to set personal goals for themselves. I think it's important for anyone to set goals for yourself. It's always important to be improving, and that's what this set of units really does for our students. I think that's about all I have.
And I can say that when I've walked in, Mark and I will walk into the sessions, and it's great to see that, you know, when Linda and Tiffany come and they get them all going, there's just an energy level in the room that is something we hadn't seen last year even. So it's great to see that. And so we're planning, they also, you know, Lucy Calkins also has a reading program that looks just like these. It's just for reading, and we're going to be implementing that next year. I've gotten so much fabulous feedback from not only the staff, but from the coaches. The people from EastCon are like, well, your staff is fabulous. And I'm like, I know. But they just talk about how, you know, thrilled they are to be working with them and how open everybody is to the work. Because it's just, there's an excitement around it. And I know, Kim, I don't want to leave you out there if you want to talk about first grade. Samples of some kindergarten, so maybe Molly could talk about it. What do you think, Molly? No?
That's really going to bed.
But I can tell you that, so this is not Molly's class, but these are just some samples of some writing that was done in September writing that was done in February, and then writing that was done today. The first two, there's two students, student A and student B. And, you know, the first two were done with prompts. So you had, like, what do you see at the park? Or what do you do at the park was the September one for this particular child. And the second one, the prompt was at the top. You know, draw and write your favorite animal, you know. And the last page, you'll see the daily news. This now just comes, they're just writing this. These are 5-year-old children who went from September being, I see the park, I think that's Jess and I go to the park. And then first me and my papa play with me. So this is, you know, another one they drew. And then this one from just this week, today, actually, because I got it today. I like school because it is fun with Mrs. RP. Mrs. RP does fun stuff. Mrs. Grennan is fun too. I love Mrs. RP and I love Mrs. Grennan. So this is probably why RP gave me this one. You know?
Molly is writing
Lawrence
Dr.
of
Seuss, right? Right now, Molly
She
is
wrote
writing a Dr. Seuss.
a whole book, right?
Yep, it's got like 8 pages, and there's Miss the something with the B. Every page rhymes.
Everything rhymes. So, and this was just another student who it was draw and write about your favorite animal, and this student wrote dog in September.
She's written out all of her sentences.
Right.
Now she's going back to illustrate.
Now it goes to write about something you like to do at school and why. And this student said, I like centers because they are fun. I like blocks. I like imagination stations because they are fun. But it's, you know, like they were getting there. And now today, hey, I like ducks because they make noises like quack, quack. When they do that, I think that is silly. Ducks are cool. I can draw ducks and color them. So just even that, it's this one is fun, that one is fun, I like this, I like that. And then it goes this, and he's got the quotes and the quacks. And this is just, these are 5-year-old children who, you know, went from September with dog to writing daily papers and books. So it really, I can't say enough about what it's done. Value in being able to purchase these materials and then have people come and coach us through it and use it. And we're also going to be, and I've spoken to some colleagues of mine with towns who have already implemented this, Hebron being one of them, and getting some of our staff out to actually see, as we're implementing one unit, but they have these, they've implemented it already, and getting our staff to be able to go and observe and see it in action, because that's another key component to, you know, sometimes you see all those words and you're like, how what does this look like? And then they can see it, but I just can't say enough about the rigor. And I will tell you, I've implemented Lucy Calkins writing in another school, my previous school, and the teachers, the kindergarten and first grade teachers looked at it and they went, our kids can't do this. And I told these guys, they can't do it. And I thought, the level of our writing in just a half a year, just till now, has increased exponentially. Because our kids can do it, and they do it phenomenally well. So that's just that piece of it.
And I think that too, now that everybody's implementing it and there's that collaboration piece that Nicole had mentioned, that alone for me has been such a game changer. Because in the past, like Shelly had mentioned, we're all doing something different. So if you want to go to somebody and say, can you help me with this? And they can't because you're not doing the same thing.
And as a first year teacher, I value that so much.
Right. And I mean, and it goes no matter what, you know, 9 years now, but 6 years, it's okay, what can my other teachers that have experience? I mean, what about the new teachers that have all this? That's one of our biggest pieces, and third grade alone values that time together, that team piece of it, and we make it a point to meet together all the time. And I can't say enough about Tiffany and Linda and that they have helped us become excited about teaching writing. About writing before used to be like dreadful to
I'm
me
scared.
because I didn't have that piece, that the resources that I wanted to use, that I was excited about. And just looking at the Lucy Hawkins books, she gives you instructions that you can use. She gives you words that you can actually say. So if you are a new teacher like Nicole, you're able to use what she's saying. And then, and this is exactly what I did with my other units of study that I have used, the next year, okay, I'm gonna change this a little bit and I'm gonna say this instead, I'm gonna use this book instead. And then the following year, it's the same thing. So that's what's so great about this resource is that teacher, no matter how many years they've been teaching. So, awesome.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Because I do need them early tomorrow.
What about we had a deal?
You had a deal?
There's a Boston Joe.
I'm bringing in coffee, is that what it is?
Lots of coffee.
Okay.
Are you still gonna go?
I can wait, yeah, we can do that, absolutely.
So thank you. It's invaluable for the teachers to be here. I appreciate it. This, I had explained to the administrators that, so they too work, a zillion hours. So, again, I appreciate that they're here and, that we're getting to hear, number one, their curriculum work, and then number two, how they're seeing this data play out for them this year and what they're doing about it. There's a clicker there.
Perfect.
If you want to.
Am I first? Yeah, I have to look at it. Okay. So the next generation accountability report is what we were, the state gives that out every year. And since Al's not here, I'm gonna start because, well, I tend to do that anyway, but I have to figure out how to.
Yeah, to the right is the.
Do I have to aim it at something?
Is it on? Yeah.
Just want to make sure I hit it.
That's not. So we press the button.
All right, we can do it this way then.
There I go.
Oh, wait.
Not happy.
Oopsie. Now I made it make noise. Forget it. I have a copy of it, so I can go without that. So one of the things I do want to just celebrate, and I should have kept them here a few more minutes longer, only because this year, last year we were also a Category 1, but we did not meet School of Distinction, and this year we did. So I want to cheer for us just a little bit and say that, like, woohoo, we did. The way they figured that out is really complicated, so I won't go into it. But they have 5 categories, and they rank us that, 1 through 5. Last year we were a 1, but we did not meet the requirements for school distinction, and you have to hit certain growth points. So last year, even though we were a 1, this year we hit for both all students and for all high needs students, and that means that for the schools that hit that, for us anyway, it was all students. Our school was in the top 10% of points earned in indicator 2 for academic growth for both all students and high need students. So those were those extra points, which help us make that school of distinction. Oh, wait, I'm gonna stay right here. So obviously the next generation accountability system, we've done it, we had it last year, we have it this year, and it sort of just looks at what are we doing well, what do we need to improve on, and some of the things we are very happy to celebrate, and other things we are already working on with our curriculum development, and that's why the staff why we want it, because they're the ones doing it. We want them to be, kind of get them to show you what they're doing and celebrate what's happening in their classrooms, and really get them to come and, you know, I think we told Nicole as part of her new teacher, you know, Amanda said, well, I'm your mentor, you have to go. And I was like, yeah, it's a true story. So, so there were 12 indicators to the accountability, and I'm just gonna go through because you have them. Okay, so the district, you have the district report. You've seen all this, so we take a look at the elementary report. I just, again, want to highlight the increase in the physical fitness scores. That is something that I know the board has had some conversation about last year. It's something that we're happy to say that we were able to be 2.3 last year, and this year it's 51 and change. So that's another good thing. I know Mr. Chenille, when he saw the score last year, was like, what? Yeah. So I had to go send him all the information about how they calculate it, and I was on the phone for an hour with the lady making sure I understood what it was, because he was very interested in making sure that we were beating the state, you know, that we moved on to beat the state average. Al, this is a middle school slide, so if you do you want to kind of jump in a little bit on the?
Sure. So we're category 2. So it's which means there's room for us to improve, and we've been really working at that. The only head scratcher for me, and I believe it's going to be inaccurate, they have us as a 63.1 in science, and I know that's how or that's about. I don't know why that's a 63.1. I would assume that would be our highest score because we consistently score higher than we did last year. So I don't know what explains that. Phys ed, we actually have improved this year. So last year was the numbers. Last year was, I want to say 41%. And so they tested for about 6th and 8th grade, and this year it's 44%. Not as much as we'd like to grow, but it's going in the right direction. Talking with the phys ed teachers, they have, considering the athletic level we have in our building and how many kids participate, and they come right out and say a lot of our athletes don't really put effort in. You know, they've got some ideas about what to do about that. So it's interesting that our most competitive kids would sort of go, when it comes to doing this stuff. So so I would think we would easily be half of our kids, if not more. Just, you know, you don't win a basketball championship in both girls and boys, and have the cross-country championship, and have the soccer teams in the tournaments, and have the baseball team have just won the title last year, and have a good shot at winning it again this year, and have the track team, and then it just doesn't make sense. So there's a motivation piece there, and that's what we've been talking a good deal about with the PE teachers. So.
And
we don't need it.
I don't need it. Okay. So if you spend time, I do have a copy. If you spend time understanding how they calculate this, help you, because I know last year I called because I didn't understand why our physical fitness scores were so low in the district when ours, you know, those individual schools had done, came back. It didn't want me to wing it. And just basically there's a whole piece about, they take your participation rate. And if you have a 90% or more participation rate, then you qualify to receive all the points. See, when it says points, possible points is say 50.
No.
If you have at least 90% of your kids participate in the assessment, you have the opportunity to earn all 50 points. Then on the different component, on the overall components of the assessment and how they score, then it determines how many of those points you actually get. But if you don't have at least 90% participation, you don't even have an opportunity to get 50. So there is a document on the state website. If you really wanted to try to read it, I tried to read it. I have a copy in my office. I still called and talked to a human being and said, you gotta help me understand this because, but we are very excited about, you know, the gains. One of the things that I look at in this for us is that our chronic absenteeism rates have gone up quite a bit since last year. And there's a few pieces to that. And I will just leave this alone now. Or a few things that I want to consider with that. First of all, I am a member of the attendance task force that was created. I've joined that, and while that group primarily looks at pre-kindergarten attendance, it is a group. The Northeast Early Childhood Council is a regional group that has Plainfield, Brooklyn, Plainfield, Putnam, Sterling, Thompson. There's one more, Killingley. Oh, I was like, how did I forget that one? So there's 6 of us. And that's a group focused on doing education, quality education for children from birth to age 8. So even though that the task force kind of looks at pre-K, we look at the whole thing. And I think some of the, you know, I can and talk about just some of the numbers is that we are actually tracking now, since I've come on board, we are following the legal mandate, how we determine if a student is, if it's unexcused or excused, and according to the state laws. I know many of you get those letters and you call me right away and you're like, what does this mean? I got a letter. And it's like, I have to send you this. It's part of it's the rules, and we monitor that. And just about every month I go through the attendance reports, and we have attendance meetings with families. We also know that some of our families have some challenges with attendance just due to transportation. You know, a student misses the bus and they can't bring them in. And so, and also elementary school does tend to be the time when people have tonsils out and tubes put in ears. And so their absences tend to occur at this age level, plus just general illness, just touching. School kids tend to, like, they'll carry their own books or their own things, but you know, you're in a pre-K or K classroom for sure, and they're playing with all the toys, and as much as we disinfect and try to keep it maintained, you know, absences, but I am on that task force specifically because we did see an increase in our chronic absenteeism. In terms of ELA and math, I think the ladies and gentlemen, I will just go to science for Jim, but I think they summed it up pretty well, that there's a lot going on in terms of professional development and sort of getting that consistency, because even though our scores have shown as a district a downward trend in ELA, it's really getting that work implemented. So we've got the curriculum, we've got all this work we've done, and now we just need to see it. And I do think we'll see the impact. You know, I've seen it here. You know, I can see it here, and I think it just, as we continue to move forward, we will see it just systemically. You know, this is kindergarten, so then I expect the first, you know, going forward, we'll start to see just the rigor being.
Are they continuing the writing through the other grades?
The writing program.
I know that Miss RP is like big on, you know, daily journals and writing.
Oh yeah, well
I
they
don't see it so much as they go forward. Maybe.
We are implementing this program K to 4, and 5 has been coming in with us, and 6 also, right? A little bit of 6.
A little bit, mostly.
Yeah. So the program, the kits that they showed you come as K to 5 kits. So the 5th grade staff for the math PD that they've done, and come back and and shared information with everybody else. So we're really trying to maximize that. But yeah, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say your question, this year, learning the curriculum was part of the job, and then implementing one unit is the
Was the
second
goal.
half of it. So, as we move forward, so all grade levels may not have implemented at the same time this year, so.
But by May, we had to adjust it. It was supposed to be by the March 9th PD day. But since we didn't have it, and some of our PD days got pushed back, I extended that they had May 1st, implement one unit. One of the things that I understand about my staff is that they're fabulous and they work hard, but if you take that whole kit and say, here, teach this, it's overwhelming. And Lucy, as great as she is as a educator, Lucy Cook is that material is very wordy. There's a lot to take in. You almost have to take it in bites, instead of taking it all in at once. And and it's one of those take what you like and leave the rest. Whereas you may not say every word that she gives you to say, but you get it. The more you use it, the better you become at it. So by next year, we plan to fully implement writing and begin, just like we did this year with the reading units, is to do a unit. They'll have certain times they have to implement.
But you should see writing going on.
We'll talk if you don't, May. But we do. They should be coming in by May 1st. Everybody should have done at least one of the units. And the teams chose which one they wanted to do. So we heard first grade did narrative, third grade did informational, so they were choosing which section.
So anything you want to share on the needs assessment? I think
in the needs assessment, we covered almost all of it. Again, our focus is just to continue, we last year sat down as a staff being, with Mark and I being new to the building. We created a vision, mission, and philosophy statement. And the first sentence of our vision statement is that our vision is to create an elementary school that is highly, and these are the documents that we look at and we address to get us there. We really want to be known at, this school of distinction. That's our goal. That's what we want. We want that, and we'll continue to push to maintain that.
So I want to thank both Ms. Janku, Mrs. Michaud, Mrs. Hansen, and we don't often hear from Mrs. Brown, but as a special ed director, she is kind of tying the pieces together.
Involved in all of this.
And connected at both schools. So I thank you all for being here this evening, and again, I appreciate that it's coming from you and that the board is hearing directly from you about all the hard work that I'm so proud of that you all are doing, as well as implementing with your staff. So thank you.
We traded off for, he'll be later tomorrow night with our conferences, so I would be later tonight, but he will.
Thank you. Yes, they're gonna sneak out.
We're not really sneaking.
No.
You're officially dismissed. We're dismissed.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.
All right, so if we can circle back. Yep.
Oh. Thank you. Okay. So, I will just take a second. If you peek in there, these are some thank yous from some of our students. Because our students also know that, sometimes they don't necessarily know who you are or what you're doing. And so, yeah, these will be our community does appreciate our Board of Education.
Trying to make us cry?
No, I'm not. Too late for
That is precious.
No.
Oh my God, cutest things ever. I miss these.
So these are fifth graders that, did this. All right, so where are we?
All right, communication from Woodstock Academy, I'm circling back to 5C.
So I just.
Is this supposed to be a picture of us?
You're very cute.
So as I received communication, I like to share it with you. So there was a communication from Woodstock Academy that spoke to the CIAAC issue. And so that's in your packet. I also shared communications with families. That's in your packet as well. So when I received as well. Thank you notes. Nope, different one, sorry. So I try to highlight for you while you're here, but also for the public. There's a thank you note that was sent out to Hometown Bank, who made a donation to the elementary school. They did a drive in their banks, the Brooklyn and Killingly banks, and they came here on a snow day and donated student supplies to the elementary school. So kind of two big buckets of supplies. So there's a thank you note that went out to them. And the Gary Charitable Trust, I think is a trust that you've probably been familiar with in the past. A trust again was the trustee, and so she has donated for many years to the Brooklyn Public Schools and other community schools as well, over $100,000 worth of donations to just Brooklyn Public Schools. She came in and met with me earlier this year, and we talked a little bit about some of the things that we're doing, and she said, you know, we like to be able to give to Brooklyn. They're right here in Brooklyn. So I talked a little bit about our STEAM programming that we're doing. Then I came in on Monday and there was a $5,000 check on my desk. So they've committed to 3 years of $5,000 grants to the Brooklyn Public Schools. Yeah, fabulous. Yeah. So it's nice to make sure you all know that, and as well as the public who may be watching.
Is this our fire textbook?
Yes.
Person?
Yes. Okay. And so materials and/or field trips for our students in this area. So it's really amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of donations over the years.
Yes. And she's just really committed and happy to do that.
Very nice.
All right, Brooklyn's Best.
So 3rd and 4th grade art PACE students have moved on to wall number 2 of the Unified Arts wing. They're painting murals and they're fabulous. I probably should get some updated pictures from my blog. I'll try to do that. Grades 1 and 2 have been enjoying their visits from the Connecticut Storytellers. Pre-K 3 and 4 have visits scheduled later this month or next month. Kindergarten students were thrilled to see the many animals that came on the Southwick Animal Zoo-mobile. So that was in the middle of March. And just last week, 3rd graders, last week's were treated to Irish step dancing. Not in your packet, but just on a note, at the Brooklyn Middle School under Brooklyn's Best, the performance of Alice in Wonderland was fabulous. I'm hoping people got to see it. The kids were just amazing. And the staff that are doing that, you know, working with those students are outstanding. So Suzette Redding and Trish Dales coordinated that and had, I don't know how many children, had to be around 50 kids participating in that performance, and it was really tremendous. But on that Friday, the opening night, there was a handful of students that went to the senior center and in costume met with some seniors. I did not get to see it. I wasn't able to get there, but senior day to get into the community and connect. Yeah. And just finally, spring sports are upon us. They're out there in the wet grass. Yes. Beginning to practice, so we have fun things to look forward to.
I have a question for you, Patty, about the successes in the middle school this year with basketball. Is there any plan to like get flags or something, or decorate our gym? Because truly, I don't think I remember that ever happening. That our boys and girls basketball teams went all the way like they did and achieved what they achieved.
We haven't. It's certainly something I can
I think it
explore
would
with
be
the.
nice. I mean, I think they should be applauded. We should have a parade. It's really to think that both those teams did all they did and made it to that level.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's so many successes. Our student Lindsay, who won the state championship, she also won the Putnam. Well, she won the Putnam road race.
I was there. I saw her.
So it really is. There's so many positive things happening, and I know that the middle school has done some pep rally kind of assemblies to do that. But let me see if this is something we can put together. Thank you.
As far as administrative reports, the current budget.
So the report that's in your binder, it's kind of following suit with what you've seen in the past, but I just want to make a couple notes to it. So you'll see that negative number has decreased a little from our anticipated end of the year balance. It was a pretty significant negative number. It's still at $754,000. Note that 22nd when this report was run, we have inputted some of the excess cost payment. We received our first payment from the state for $345,000. We inputted some grant funds to the tune of $178,000, and we received the first half of a transportation grant for $13,000. So that number is moving in the right direction. I do anticipate that we will need to access the money that was allocated by the town to help us with some of these deficits. My hope would be that we do not need to use all of what the town had. I'm very hopeful that we're not going to need to use that $800,000 number that was identified by the town, although I appreciate that.
I'm sure they will too.
Yes.
Any other administrative reports or?
Nothing else administratively.
Can I ask a budget question just that I was concerned about? What would salaries, cafeteria, overtime be?
So when we have a legislative breakfast, we need to pay them overtime. So the cafeteria is self-funded, and so we actually don't have any money in their salaries. We don't pay anything for their salaries, but for the legislative breakfast, they wouldn't be expected to necessarily fund our function. Okay, so I understand what you're asking.
That's what I was hoping to find out.
So what does happen, I think that when, let's say the bunny breakfast, and we're paying our staff, so what happens is, as we collect those fees for building use fees, that money will be used to offset. So you'll see an offset coming on that.
All right, and Kate did reimburse us for the food.
Food, yeah. I actually haven't verified that. I will.
Oh, okay.
I haven't asked, but I
They're
will.
supposed to.
Yeah.
All right, I was just curious.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, BOE committee reports. I don't think we've had any internal committees that have met recently. Representatives to other committees, Joe-ish, canceled Board of Finance. Capital did start last week as well. We heard from the Board of Selectmen for the town side and also the Board of Fire Commissions. And we're working on a date that the Board of Education can present our capital requests to Capital so that they in turn can present to Board of Finance. On the Board of Finance side, I do know that the Board of Ed will be presenting our budget at a special Board of Finance meeting on the 11th, Tuesday, whatever Tuesday is.
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
don't
thought
know,
it was the
whatever the
10th.
Tuesday is, whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
that, I know it's a Tuesday, but that's not Tuesday. So I know that we've got a meeting to present, so Mrs. Buell will be there to do that. 11th, okay, the 11th. Any other? No, it's Tuesday.
Oh,
No, no, it's not, no, it's, yeah, we made sure that.
Okay.
Maybe that's 12.
Okay.
Is, what was the
I only know that
Okay.
because I was supposed to be somewhere else, and I was like, okay, we have White House.
No, the Board of Ed to the Board of Finance was like a totally separate day of nothing.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, so we do have
So
White House
it's-
on the 11th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Board of Finance is on the 10th.
Okay, all right, good, you.
Sorry. All right, Joan, anything from Kate?
Just that, the legislative session is still going on, and it's, a whirlwind if you're keeping up with any of the emails that Gary Mull has been forwarding us on a daily basis, so just a matter of seeing what happens once this session is complete.
Anything from EastCon?
Yes, I had EastCon last night, and a couple things going on. Rico signed, so they have an acting school principal for the middle college there now. They also were invited to attend a national conference on bullying in Reno, so we had a presentation on that. A lot about the, gun violence, unfortunately, and everything that's happening in our school systems. And the model that they were talking about, and kind of the common theme was that, coming up with an approach that's more proactive versus being reactive, vigilance in your school system, knowing your kids, how to respond to fragile kids and prevention. When Tom Cronin was explaining to us, the people that were at this conference, he said, there's a lot of craziness going on out there in terms of people buying like bulletproof backpacks and, things that really aren't effective in schools, putting in bulletproof glass and just, kind of crazy expense management. Really a problem, and that they saw this thing that is being put into classrooms that's almost like an enclosed. Yeah, have you seen that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and all like 20 kids can fit in
Go
this
in
box, and
and
it's like bulletproof, but and that the model is really now run, hide, fight. I don't know if you've heard this. I was kind of surprised, but I guess that's where we're at. And it was a lot about, just managing what's happening with the internet and how do you go about doing that. So that was our biggest presentation last night.
Anything from Woodstock?
Woodstock, we had a very big presentation about the new health center that's been put in place from Bobby Joe Saucier. Really that students, but the other kids within the academy, all students are benefiting from that. So we had a large presentation on that. Of course, we had a bunch presentation in the beginning from the 50 parents that came to express how they felt about the consideration of the CIAAC versus NAPSAC. And the only thing I really would like to say at this point is, there's so many mistruths out there. Every time I read something from anyone that's written, I find things in it that are not factual. There's a lot of people that are poking around, I think, in places that we need the administration to be the consistent people coordinating with the people involved in this process. Holly Singleton has the 300-page manual from the CIAAC and the 50-page manual from And it's been a real frustration with her to get concrete answers on things. But I feel that the administration is very actively and professionally going about doing what is in the best interest of all students at Woodstock Academy. They still just don't have what they need to be able to say to the board, here's our recommendation, and they're trying very hard to get there. But imagine that you're trying to do what you need to do, and you've got, you know, all these things that are bubbling up in the news media that you're responding to, and it's mistruths, and it's very frustrating. So I think we're preparing. We had a meeting last night to talk about the April 2nd forum, which is the opportunity for parents to come and to, again, tell us what they're thinking. Hopefully the approach will be to give parents facts, real facts. We're hoping to calm down or just not truths. So April 2nd will be the evening that we allow parents to come forth, and then hopefully following that, there'll be some sort of announcement and decision made.
So it's Monday night?
Yes.
7 o'clock?
Yes, Monday night, 7 o'clock.
Any other committees that? All right. And for old business, the final sign off for the roof project.
So the roof project is done. The one thing we need is a motion by the board. You can see there are two separate motions here, A and, well, the two parts for the motion, to get this signed off, and then the final submission to the state so we can get the final payment back from the state. Would somebody like to read it?
I'll make a motion that we approve the project for the elementary, roof project for the elementary and the middle school, for completion, as completed.
Second. All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good. All right, and then we have our 2018-19.
So, is that this one? That's the thing.
Sorry.
So the calendar, as you recommended last week, or last month, sorry, we made a few corrections, including the snow days, the way they're written, because Good Friday is part of that vacation. We would not start on a Friday taking days off. We ended up with 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10.
Does anybody have any further questions or concerns about the?
Yeah, I just have had several people say that they thought we should build in a few snow days onto the end of, go beyond the 12th and say, you know, if we have 5 snow days, it'll be the 19th. We built in 5 snow days. If we have less than that, we'll backtrack it. It doesn't make any difference, except that if people put the 12th in their mind and then it goes beyond that, which is more than likely to do. If they have the 19th in their mind and the kids get out on the 17th, they're happy. But if you tell them the 12th and they get out on the 17th, now they're like, oh, you know, so it's a, but we used to do that. I don't know, they always used to tack on a few days at the end of the year, you know, saying we're gonna have 4 snow days or 3 snow days. So, I don't know that it makes any difference.
Yeah. I don't think we work some days and we're only gonna send the students for 182, so we certainly could say 13th, 14th, 17th, 18th, and 19th of June are snow days. Those are the first 5 snow days, and then the 6th snow day, we would attend school on February 19th as indicated.
So rather than have it last day of school, the 12th, which we know probably isn't gonna happen.
Well, it says projected, and that was one of my comments from the original copy that had gone out is just to make it clear that it's projected. I mean, but we've had years where it really hasn't had, you know, a lot of things happen, and then we have this past school year where we had
I know,
days
and everybody,
in October,
right? So it seems like everybody should know that. Can we just have
I mean, and some people are gonna wanna see the 12th as the, yay, if everything goes awesome, then we get out the 12th, and some people wanna,
I don't know if we've ever had a year where we didn't even have one day.
I think in in my last few years, we actually got out on the intended. I think it was might have been 3 years ago or 4 years ago when we actually.
3 years ago was the winter of 15 was when we had the three years, no?
So maybe it was the year before that,
Maybe,
because there was
maybe.
one
Yeah, we had
year
one
in the
very
last.
warm year. Yeah.
Maybe
It
we're
was just,
doing next year.
people just suggested that, and I'm like, well, it doesn't make any difference, you can do the math yourself.
Oh, we did get those, I didn't even notice those. Yes.
Thank you.
No.
I mean, I feel like it's, at least we start and then we know where we could potentially build, and then you're just adding days on.
It doesn't matter, it doesn't
mean,
matter, I'm just saying people are.
Yeah.
And I don't. Back off, I think.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to accept the 2018-19 calendar as presented with the projected end of school date on June 12th, and then if there's more than 5 snow days by January 31st, build those in so that people are aware that those days might be on the chopping block.
Second.
Any further discussion or
Did you
questions?
second?
No, he's not loud enough.
It's gonna get fast and loud.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so under new business, we've got the approval of the proposed estimate of expenditures for fiscal year 19 to be sent to the Board of Finance on April 10th, Tuesday. That's right. Okay. Anything that we need to go over? I don't think we've changed.
I just want to explain this one page. So you've got 2 different pieces of paper. The top piece of paper, landscape, 1 page. And so in speaking with some of the town officials, I was asked to make it very clear what this year's operating budget is. So I tried to make it clear on this piece of paper. So in the 17-18 approved budget, what was approved last year is that $17,593,000. The additional appropriation made, that was in December of 17. So I wrote that number in. I was asked to make it very clear. So the anticipated expenditures for the board to run the school this year is $18,479,353. As I just spoke to you, we may not need to spend all of that money, but that is what the town approved for us to spend to operate. There, you see the 18-19 requested expenditures that we've been talking about for a couple months now is $18,275,435. So there's actually a decrease of our anticipated expenditures for this year and next year's expected expenditures. So the numbers are the same. We didn't change anything. It's just a matter of how do you look at that? Because what are the real expenses that we're anticipating versus what is the budget, the proposed budget or proposal for expenditures? So it's actually a 1.1% decrease over what we anticipate our expenditures to be this year. So you can see there's a dollar amount. It's a decrease of $203,000. Also of note is that $167,114 moved to the improvement budget. So if for some reason that capital improvement budget should not get approved, we would need to address that somehow. Because those are actual technology purchases that we actually need to in order to run the system. So that's the only thing that looks different. It's just a different way of looking at the same numbers. It's the same information, nothing has changed.
But we're not likely to hear from capital improvement for a couple of months, but what's going to be included. So if we approve the budget without it, we're running the risk of not getting any
That's right.
technology.
That's right, but I think what the Board of Education could do, especially those representatives on the capital committee, is argue that proposed capital expenditure be the highest priority project on the capital list for this year.
It's even either though.
Well, there's no guarantee of that. There's no guarantee that the taxpayers will include it.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, there's, if we don't include it in our budget, we run the risk. You know, maybe they'll say, this is a year we're not gonna do any capital projects, whatever, I know 6 months after.
You run the risk.
Yeah, we run.
Either way.
Yeah.
I do think some people may, I realize there were some town officials that encouraged you to put the hardware in the capital program rather than carrying it in the budget. My preference, I'm just one person, would be to have it all included in the school budget. I think this.
Well, I
it's
thought
not
there
real
was
clear.
an interest in having some of those town budget would get caught with being minimum expenditure. Right? Wasn't that, well, that was a big thing a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
Let's move
except
some
now
of your
with the state
expenses.
not giving us the money and,
Yeah, I know.
school budget's under pressure all the way around. I don't think too many people are worried about the NER or the NBR.
There was just an article in the paper.
There
that
was, I just read it too.
6 towns that got hit
Yeah.
with,
Oh,
Killing like
people certainly may be concerned about the amount of money that individual towns spend on education. I was trying to separate that from being overly concerned about the MBR.
okay, well,
I think this will work out okay, as long as the people that attend the capital meetings try to exert as much influence as possible to make this the highest priority item on the capital budget. Frankly, if the taxpayers representation to the taxpayers down the road, and if this is the highest priority item, it's pretty hard to imagine that that wouldn't be part of the second proposal for the tax.
So, so at this point, I did write a language for a motion at the bottom of that page if it's of interest to you.
Stop for a second. The page, I don't know if I did it, for capital for, the board.
Yeah, here's my copy. There you go.
Okay. I know that we had talked about capital that, that the Board of, for the general government side, they presented at the capital meeting and they had, some technology in their presentation. And we had talked, I mentioned to Rick and said that he and Patty could get together possibly if there was any benefit to combining the two requests. It's not the same things that we're looking for. They're looking for more work computers, whereas some of our stuff is that. But as far as like the implementing, putting them into our networks and the costs that are associated with that as well. I don't believe that they've had a chance to discuss that at this point in time, but that's, another way that we maybe be packaging, so to try and save some on improving the cost. So as far as that, so I would entertain a motion. I would entertain a motion to approve the Board of Education's estimate of expenditures in the amount of $18,275,435 for the fiscal year 19 to be presented to the Board of Finance on
Seconded.
who first did it?
May.
Her
hand went out
We're
first.
raising that one.
Okay,
I'll make a motion.
okay. May, and then Nate seconds. Any further questions or discussions on that? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, and do you have current curriculum enrollment report, anything of note
Nothing.
that you need to
No,
mention that?
Numbers have not changed.
Okay.
Do we have numbers by chance on what our 8th graders have decided? I don't recall seeing those.
No, I just sent Melissa a message
Oh,
to
okay.
pull those numbers for me.
Yeah, I was thinking that, because we usually see them like January.
All right.
Yeah,
That's just
nice
nice
to see where they're going.
We do have some numbers, but They've changed a little bit, but I'll try to get them on for you.
Okay,
Is the
great,
date
thank you.
February, what date, or is it January? Did they have to
To
decide?
decide by
Oh, they-
January.
And we did the curriculum development updates, and, all right, what do we have to give, right, you spent, you give it to me? Oh, you gave it to me? I don't know. I don't have it.
Was it in folder?
That was in my folder. Okay. You wanna look at that?
I didn't get one.
Well, I don't know.
Is there permission? No.
No? Oh, okay. I'm just making sure that I wasn't, thank you, missed the piece of the paper that I didn't. Okay, any further public comment?
Yes.
Sorry.
Like there's a three-way tie between all of you with the hands raising, so ready, rock, paper, scissors, go. Who wants to go first? Jeff?
I think it's unfortunate that the board chose not to discuss the proposed changes in sports alignment at Woodstock Academy to gauge the board's opinion. As stated earlier today, these changes may profoundly change the school experience of Brooklyn students. I think the board should discuss this, the proposal, and inform the Board of Trustees of their opinion. From my point of view, I cannot imagine our high school students not competing against the traditional local schools that we have competed against for 50 years or more. The NEPSAC affiliation would change that, and I'd like to suggest that Woodstock Academy continue to start local students before making changes. That means waiting another year to implement the change, then wait the other year. After all, 80% of the enrollment in Woodstock Academy are local students who attend that school to meet the statutory requirements for secondary education. The 20% that provide a lot of money, so there's certainly no doubt that the tuition students provide benefits to the local students, but to alter drastically this long-standing sports arrangement to benefit primarily those tuition students, I think really needs to be thought through.
If I can just say, Jeff, you know.
No, let me finish, and then you can say, I understand that we don't agree on this.
I'm not, no, it's not about agreeing.
Develop a position on this. I guess I already said that. And I don't agree that it's sufficient for these decisions to be made by school administrators. That's like saying you want Trump to run everything. Or some other unit of local government. You want Governor Malloy to make every decision. Parents have input into this, and it's important that they make that input. Now, I don't have kids that are in this category at all anymore, but I can't imagine my son who played AAU soccer in addition to soccer at Woodstock Academy, that he'd have to play Monson Academy or Mount Hermon School or some other damn thing instead of playing NFA, Killenly, Plainfield, and all of those other things. Woodstock Academy has to get it right. They can't just foist this bipartisan decision. Certainly the way it's been presented, it looks like it's very transparent that they've made up their mind already and they just going to go through the motions. Now, I'm sorry, Joan, I interrupted you.
No, I thought we were in another category, so excuse me. I will say nothing.
All right, anything else, Jeff?
No, that's it.
I had a couple comments. I wanted to kind of attach what Mr. Otto said about Mr. Sanford making this decision that affects so many people. As per the BOT policy, methods of operations, the headmaster shall utilize the best judgment of the professional staff in formulating a sound educational program. Athletics are an extension of our academic program. For the school year 2017-2018, Mr. Stanford has not been able to rely on the athletic professional staff expert input due to the challenges of in his absence, the community is aware that Sean Saucier has been providing guidance. But his newness to Woodstock Academy, his professional history limited to the private school sector has been restricted. Sean's role in our football program, which is being most impacted by the NEPSAC decision, is ultimately biased. During the challenging time, it would be more beneficial to have the public input and the Board of Trustees to voice their opinions. Therefore, our opinions to the Board of Trustees matter. To address what Mrs. Travella said, I agree there is misinformation and misrepresentation and misinterpretation of information. That's why I'm trying to advocate for my daughters the best way I can. That's why on a snow day, I read through the CIAAC handbook and the NEPSAC rules when I read on the Winnie Post that Mrs. Singleton said CIAAC is targeting really terrible. Let me investigate. That's when I called the executive director at CIAAC to say, this is what's being said. Is this true? I had a 20-minute long conversation with him. I wrote down the notes. I sent it back to him. He confirmed them. I had the email conversation. I also shared it with Mrs. Singleton because she asked for transparency. She said, you seem to have information I don't have. I said, here you go. I said, you have information that I don't understand. You say that they gave you approval in an email. Could I see that email? She said, absolutely. She sent me the email that gave them approval to do what they did with the football team. When you read the email, and I will read it with you, it does not give them approval to have 10th, 11th, and 12th graders on the team. It gave approval for a PG team in the email, a postgraduate team. That's not what they did. CIAAC discovered it. They said, that's not what we told you to do. You were against your membership agreement. You have violated. You've broken the rules. In our society, you can't just break rules and walk away. There are consequences. Yes, can they somehow work together? I hope that they can. I don't not want my kids to go to Woodstock Academy, but it's important that there's misinformation on both sides. And I don't know if I can ask you. I try to educate myself and come with facts so I'm not sounding stupid or that I don't know what I'm talking about. So I've done the research, as is my right as a concerned parent. So could you tell me what I have wrong? No. Okay. Okay.
And I just wonder, are there going to be a representative from our board at the meeting?
Yes.
Second, you will be, yes. Yeah, everybody, of this side.
Everybody is welcome.
Okay.
AJ.
So that's where the information is going to be presented.
So I understand that administrative staff couldn't stay till this time because I'm guessing they're back here in a little bit. But I just wanted to say that I'm sure you can pass it along to them. That was fantastic. So thank you to all of them and the teachers too tonight, because that was eye-opening. So I come to a lot of these, and speaking as somebody who doesn't have a child in school and I don't have any employment ties to the school or a spouse or anything like that who works in the school, this is when I get my information about the day-to-day operations. So watching all you guys and listening to you, I hear more on that end, but I think when you guys are giving these presentations, it's also helpful for someone like me to and say, well, here's what I know is coming because that was what was presented. Those are things that I can actually go off of instead of, just pointing them. I can't stand, and May would know, I can't stand giving people links and saying, go find this, because that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear, is it good or bad? So there's that. It definitely helps. It's appreciated. And then it was, when you mentioned the donor too, I would assume that's not necessarily a parent, but I know other donors in town who who are similar to me, do not have ties. They don't have children in the school. They don't have a spouse that works at the school. So it's nice to see that, and it's nice to see it be recognized that there are people who are invested in the school here other than parents and administrators and teachers. There are community members that see need to have a school we can all be proud of, not necessarily, even regardless of whether we use it or not, you know, it does benefit all of us people. I know you guys do that a lot, especially with the Brooklyn Best thing. I enjoy that now.
All righty.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, now you all know. Now you all know. All right. 21:49. We're gonna give that to Joan. And I think her name and
Yeah, she was a
second.
little.
Yeah, it's a little
yeah.
louder than you were. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.